Hey folks, it's Nicole Garner here, your friendly licensed real estate agent. This is the week of August 12th, 2024, and it's a big week in the real estate industry. This coming weekend, there are going to be major changes to real estate practices nationwide. This is the result of a settlement agreement reached earlier this year between the National Association of Realtors and a group of home sellers from the state of Missouri. The class action lawsuit alleged that National Association of Realtors and some of the nation's largest brokerage firms were engaged in breaking antitrust laws as it related to real estate commissions. From that, there are two major changes that are going to go into effect this coming Saturday, August 17th. One, broker compensations can no longer be listed in the MLS. Two, buyer-broker agreements will be required to be signed between a broker and a home buyer before the broker and the broker's agent can render any real estate services to the home buyer. Let's talk about number one. Broker compensations can no longer be listed in the MLS. What's the MLS? What's a broker compensation? So the MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service. And in a nutshell, the MLS are local marketplaces where brokers and agents share information about properties that are for sale or have recently sold. Traditionally, when a broker and a home seller have entered into an agreement for the broker to assist the home seller in selling their home, part of that agreement includes compensation. When the broker and the agent have gotten approval from a home seller to share part of their commission with a brokerage that brings them a buyer and ultimately purchases the seller's home, that information has gone into the MLS. Effective this Saturday, we can no longer put that information in the MLS. What we can continue to do and what should be happening is when you as a homeowner enlist the services of a broker or an agent to help you sell your home, you should always be negotiating and identifying what services that broker or agent will provide you, what the compensation will be, how that compensation will be rendered and in what format. For example, is that compensation a percentage of the purchase price? Is it a flat fee or is it an hourly rate? And if that compensation can be split with any other party to the transaction. So that hasn't changed. Those have always been negotiable and they will continue to be negotiable. So, number two, buyer-broker agreements will also be required nationwide. If you're here in the DC metro area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia have required buyer-broker agreements since roughly 2016. Although some of us have operated in a gray area, we can't anymore. Similar to a listing agreement where both a broker and a seller agree to terms to sell their home, brokers and home buyers have what's known as a buyer-broker agreement. And that's where the buyer and the broker agree to the services the broker and agent will provide, what the compensation will be for those services, how that compensation will be rendered. Sound familiar? Will it be and in what format? Is it a percentage of the purchase price? Is it an hourly rate? Or is it a flat fee? And can any of that compensation be split with any other party to the transaction? There's also one additional thing that on the buyer side we want to keep in mind. Whatever you, the home buyer, and the broker have agreed to in terms of compensation, the broker cannot accept more than that in regards to the transaction. I'll give you an example. You're the home buyer, you come to me to enlist my services to help you buy a home. We agree to terms, we put that in writing in the buyer-broker agreement. The compensation is $5. So we're on the market, we're looking for a home for you, we find one. The seller is offering seller concessions towards the buyer's agent. Concession just means they're willing to give you money, and the concessions they're offering is $6. I can only accept $5. Hopefully, if you're working with a good agent, the other dollar, the agent will try to negotiate and have it to work towards other fees in the transaction as it relates to you. But I, as the broker or the agent, can only accept $5. Conversely, if you and I are entered into a buyer-broker agreement, and again, we've agreed that the compensation will be $5, we're on the market looking for a home, we find the perfect home for you, we learn that the seller is offering $4 in terms of concession for the buyer towards the buyer's agent. I can accept the $4, but you, the buyer, are still on the hook for the extra dollar. Okay? Now, it should be noted, again, all these things are negotiable. So not only should you be negotiating with your broker and your buyer if you're a home seller or a home purchaser, but you should be negotiating with the seller and the buyer if you're engaged in a transaction. So again, 2 major changes coming this weekend. 1, broker compensation can no longer be listed in the MLS. And nationally, before a broker and agent can offer real estate services, a home buyer must be engaged in a buyer-broker agreement with that broker. Now, if you're going to an open house, you do not need to be in a buyer-broker agreement. If you're discussing what real estate services a broker and agent offer, you also don't need to be involved. You don't need to be in a buyer-broker agreement. However, if you want an agent or a broker to show you a home, that's known as a real estate service, you will be required to enter into a buyer-broker agreement. In these agreements, not only is the services, the compensation, how it will be rendered part of it, but how the agreement is terminated is also part of that. So again, there is no set, there are no set numbers as it relates to compensation from the National Association of Realtors, from your state or your local boards. All right. So big takeaways are big changes coming. I think that they are good. And when I say I think that they are good, it is because at this point in time, all aspects of the transaction are going to be transparent to all parties. While this is a big change to the residential real estate market, this is not a big change in commercial. In commercial, this has been going on since the dawn of time, where all these pieces are negotiated up front and they are very transparent. We do, as real estate professionals, ask for grace during this period. Not only is this a change for you as consumers, it's a change for us as brokers and agents. It's a lot to digest here. I know it is. There are tons of super helpful links down below, as well as my contact information should you want to reach out and discuss further. Until next time, have a great week.